Hi everybody. First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video, and I look forward to discussing my thesis with you guys later on. When I write or read, I always need to have a cup of coffee in my hand, gothic, classical, or jazz music playing in the background, and rain outside is always a bonus. I didn't know why or what this was until I came across posts and images on social media that captured what I enjoyed while studying. These were tagged as dark academia aesthetic. From then on, I was intrigued. As I dived further into this online world, I noticed the types of images being associated with the aesthetic. Some were images that I'd seen before, others were more specific to the aesthetic, such as outlining what movies to watch and books to read in order to understand the aesthetic. I began to wonder why this aesthetic has emerged, and why now? For my thesis, I'll be creating the first academic scholarship of the dark academia aesthetic, as I put what has primarily existed in online format into writing, essentially creating a manifesto of the aesthetic. By doing this, I'll also be demonstrating my argument that the emergence of the dark academia aesthetic is a postmodern phenomenon that is nostalgic for a past that never actually existed. What is the dark academia aesthetic? First, we must answer what is dark academia. Dark academia is a cultural trope that derives its core values and themes from ancient Greek literature, philosophy, arts, and is also deeply infused with Gothic elements. Common themes of the aesthetic include existentialism, death, murder, self-discovery, obsession, exclusivity, and the pursuit of knowledge and passions. The aesthetic is not inherently negative, but it does glorify and romanticize mental health issues, classist attitudes, and unhealthy behaviors. The dark academia aesthetic is the online representation of dark academia. It primarily exists online through social media platforms such as Pinterest, Tumblr, and Instagram, and is composed of images and posts that showcase the specific dark academia themes. Think along the lines of a mood board. Essentially, it takes a style and appropriates it to meet the needs of the particular subculture in order to be nostalgic for a time period that never existed. It is this element of the aesthetic that classifies it as a manifestation of postmodernism. I apologize for all the noise. For my definition of postmodernism, I will be referring to Frederick Jameson's essay, Postmodernism and Consumer Society. Jameson describes postmodernism as a movement based on retaliation to the individual-centered ideology of modernism. Because of this, postmodern works cannot be individual-based, and therefore recycle and reuse already existing works to create something new, what Jameson describes as pastiche, or a style of mimicry. Inherent to the aesthetic are certain rules and regulations that determine what is allowed within the aesthetic, and they control three main aspects of the aesthetic: the language, the fashion, and the books and movies. These rules and regulations also make the aesthetic inherently self-referential. We will look at Kill Your Darlings only for the purpose of this video. Released in 2013, it takes place in 1944 as it follows Allen Ginsberg and his friendship with fellow Beat Generation poets Jack Kerouac, William Burroughs, and classmate Lucien Carr. It tells the story of the outsider trying to fit in within this exclusive clique, struggling with imposter syndrome. There's also the key dark academia element of murder, and the group create a literary movement called the New Vision. They literally piece together torn pages of books to create their own mood board. Sound familiar? The dark academia aesthetic is a postmodern phenomenon formed through an online subculture made up of pre-existing images and posts. These posts are dictated by rules and regulations which make the aesthetic self-referential and inherently exclusive. This contributes to the aesthetic's tendency to be nostalgic for a time that never actually existed. So we still have to answer why now. Why during a moment in which higher education in the US is more expensive, less accessible, and less linked to social mobility than in the latter half of the 20th century? I argue that they provide a retreat from social turmoil. This aesthetic and the tenets of it create a racially and socially homogeneous world of privilege and retreat, which students today seem to be flocking to. As participants in the aesthetic maintain control over what images and posts they want to add to their own mood board, the aesthetic showcases time and time again its inherent exclusivity. Attempts at including works by minorities and underrepresented communities have recently arisen within the subculture, but not everyone seems to be on board. Hopefully, as time goes on, the aesthetic will begin to include these works, but if that happens, If the aesthetic includes the modern world, which its very existence seeks to exclude, will the aesthetic survive? Thank you so much.